When her name lit up my phone, I almost dropped it. After 5 years of absolute silence, no calls, no Merry Christmas, not even a like on a birthday post, my older sister, Haley, had the audacity to text me like we were on good terms. "Can you lend us $30,000? That was it. No, hey. No, how are you? Just that. As if we were a functioning family. As if she hadn't treated me like a cockroach under her shoe for most of my adult life. As if I didn't still remember the sound of her laugh when I was standing outside a gas station with everything I owned stuffed in a duffel bag. My name's Clayton. I'm 29 now, but this story starts way before I ever got that text. If you've got time, I'll tell you exactly how I got here, and why Haley has absolutely no idea what's coming. I grew up in a house where silence was louder than shouting. My dad passed away when I was 6, and from that moment on, Mom checked out emotionally. She did the bare minimum: meals, school forms, the occasional dentist appointment, but affection? Support? Forget it. And Haley, being 7 years older, took full advantage of that vacuum. She was the golden child, valedictorian, star of the swim team, and the apple of my mother's eye. Me? I was the weird, quiet kid who liked books and computers. I was too sensitive and too soft, apparently. If I cried, I was dramatic. If I got mad, I was disrespectful. But if Haley flipped out, Mom would say, "She's under a lot of pressure." I learned pretty early not to expect fairness. Haley had a talent for turning people against me without ever raising her voice. She'd smile sweetly while twisting the knife. When I was 14, I saved up for weeks to buy a used tablet off Craigslist. It wasn't anything special, but it was mine. The next day, it was gone. Mom claimed I probably lost it, and Haley said, "Clayton's always misplacing things." 2 years later, I found it in her old swim bag when we were moving houses. When I confronted her, she smirked and said, "Oh, that? I thought it was just lying around." No apology, no guilt. And Mom just sighed and said, "Let's not start something." I eventually stopped confronting her about anything. By the time I was 19, I couldn't take it anymore. The house felt like a prison where I was the only inmate. I tried college for a semester, but tuition was a beast and financial aid barely scratched the surface. I dropped out and picked up a job at a hardware store to get by. Haley was off at grad school, fully funded by Mom's savings, even though there wasn't any money for me to go to college. I never hated her. Not then. I just figured some people were born lucky, and I wasn't one of them. Things got worse in my early 20s. I had a string of bad luck. A stolen car, a cheap landlord who refused to fix a gas leak, which made me sick for weeks, and then the final blow: my roommate bailed on rent without notice. I couldn't make up the difference in time, and just like that, I was homeless. Not sleeping on a friend's couch homeless. Actual homeless. For a few weeks, I lived out of my car, when I had one. When it got towed, thanks to unpaid tickets I couldn't afford, I started bouncing between shelters and the occasional 24-hour diner if I had a few bucks. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was ashamed, but because I knew what they'd say. But one night, around midnight, I saw someone familiar step into the all-night grocery store I was warming up in. Haley. She was wearing heels, designer jeans, and a trench coat that probably cost more than I'd made that entire month. She didn't see me at first. I looked rough, thin, bearded, layers of mismatched clothes. But when she finally recognized me, she froze. I gave her a small nod, like, "Yeah, it's me." Before I could even open my mouth, she laughed. Not a shocked laugh. Not an awkward laugh. A cruel, snide laugh. She turned to the guy she was with and said, "Oh my God, it's my little brother. What, are you going for the hobo chic look now?" I didn't say anything, just stared at her. She didn't stop. "You always liked playing the victim. Now you're fully committed, huh?" Her boyfriend, or whatever he was, awkwardly chuckled. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to ask her how she could be so heartless. But I just stood there, silent, and let her walk past me like I was trash. That was the last time I saw her. Until last week. The text came out of nowhere, just as I was finishing a project for my company. I run a small web design business now, solo, but profitable. Took me years to build. I live in a modest but cozy house just outside the city. Nothing flashy. I don't post on social media. I don't flaunt my success. But I've made a life for myself, brick by brick. And apparently, that life is worth exactly $30,000. I stared at the message for a long time. "Can you lend us $30,000? No explanation. No context. Just a number. And the gall to say us, like I owed both her and whoever she was with. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I was shaking, not from anger, but something deeper. I thought I'd buried all those old wounds, but they came roaring back. I paced the room for hours, replaying everything in my mind. The tablet, the mocking laughter, the night in the grocery store. And now she wanted my help? No, no, this wasn't going to be that kind of story. She had no idea who I'd become, and I had no intention of being the bigger person. But I needed more information. I had to understand what was going on. So I texted back. Hi, Haley. Long time. What's the $30,000 for? What came next was a flood of desperation, guilt-tripping, and twisted revisionist history that made my jaw drop. When Haley's next message came in, it was so long my phone split it into 3 bubbles. The tone had shifted. She was suddenly warm, almost apologetic, trying to bury the past under a thick layer of faux sentimentality. I know this is out of the blue, Clayton, but I didn't know who else to turn to. We're in a really difficult spot. I didn't want to reach out like this, but we've exhausted all our options. It's not just for me. It's for my daughter. Please just hear me out. That last part stopped me cold. She had a kid? Since when? I blinked at the message, then stared at the ceiling for a while. I hadn't heard a word about Haley's life since that night at the grocery store. For all I knew, she'd moved to another country. She certainly never made an effort to tell me anything. And now she was dropping the "I'm a mom" card, hoping it'd unlock some hidden brotherly instinct. It almost worked. Almost. But before I responded, I needed to know what I was walking into. So I did what any half-sane person with Wi-Fi would do. I looked her up. Social media was scarce. Her old Instagram had gone dark years ago. But LinkedIn? Oh, that was still active. She was listed as freelance consultant at some generic-sounding agency. Her bio was vague. Lots of buzzwords, no actual information. A little more digging, and I found an old baby shower photo on her best friend's Facebook page. Caption: "Can't believe Haley's gonna be a mom." That post was from 3 years ago. So, she had a toddler now. Still didn't explain the $30,000. I replied, "I didn't know you had a daughter. What's going on?" 10 minutes later, she hit me with the full sob story. Her husband, Kyle, had lost his job. They were 6 months behind on mortgage payments. Their credit cards were maxed out. She was working part-time, but it barely covered groceries. And the cherry on top? Their daughter, Aria, needed dental surgery that wasn't fully covered by insurance. Haley claimed they were weeks away from losing their house. And then came the emotional bait. "Clayton, I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I've changed. I really have. I wish I could take back how I treated you. I was young and stupid and jealous. You were always so smart and creative, and I guess I resented that. But I'm not that person anymore. Please don't let my past mistakes hurt Aria." It was almost convincing. Almost. But here's the thing about emotional bait. It only works if you're not already drowning in the memories of being treated like garbage. And the more I thought about it, the more the old footage started playing in my mind on a loop. I was 10 when I realized that Mom didn't love us the same way. Maybe not even at all. Haley would get extra chicken nuggets. Haley got to skip chores if she had a busy week. When I scraped my knee, Mom told me to walk it off. When Haley twisted her ankle in gym class, Mom picked her up early and took her out for frozen yogurt. I kept my head down, thinking maybe I just needed to try harder, get better grades, be less of a burden. But nothing changed. I remember once, just once, I got a perfect score on a math test. I ran home, paper in hand, so excited to show them. Haley looked at it, rolled her eyes, and said, "Took you long enough." I did that in 7th grade. "Mom," she said, "well, that's what you're supposed to do." That was it. No, I'm proud of you. No smile. Just a pat on the head and back to scrolling through her phone. By the time I was 17, Haley had basically turned me into the family punching bag. If something went missing, it was my fault. If Mom was stressed, it was because of me. If Haley's boyfriend dumped her, it was because you're always moping around the house like a loser, and it's depressing. The worst part? I believed them. For years, I internalized that I was the problem, that I wasn't trying hard enough, that if I just fixed me, maybe things would be okay. But the illusion shattered the summer after high school. I'd been working 2 part-time jobs to save up for a laptop so I could take online courses. I wasn't going to college. I couldn't afford it, but I figured I could still learn something. Maybe build a portfolio. Maybe escape. That summer was brutal. I'd leave the house at 6 a.m. for a landscaping job, get home by 2, nap for an hour, then head to a diner where I washed dishes until midnight. My hands were cracked from chemicals and sunburned from the heat. I was exhausted, but every paycheck brought me closer to that laptop. Then, one day, I came home and it was gone. I thought maybe Mom had moved it. Maybe Haley had borrowed it. But when I asked, Mom looked confused. What laptop? The one I bought. The MacBook. I left it on the desk. She blinked. Oh, that. Haley needed it for a trip. She said you were fine with it. I felt my stomach drop. What trip? She's going to Barcelona with her boyfriend. He surprised her. Isn't that sweet? I couldn't speak. I just stood there, mouth open, while Haley strolled in from the hallway, flipping through travel documents. You can use the old Toshiba in the closet, she said without looking up. It's slow, but whatever. You're just watching tutorials, right? I snapped. For the first time in years, I actually raised my voice. You stole my laptop. She scoffed. God, Clayton, relax. I didn't steal anything. I borrowed it. You're flying to Spain with a device I paid for, with money I earned working 14-hour days. And I'll bring it back, she interrupted. Don't be so dramatic. I looked at Mom, expecting her to say something. But she just shook her head and muttered, You don't need to make everything a fight. That was the moment. That was the exact moment I realized I was never going to matter to them. A week later, I left. I packed my bag, drained the last $120 from my checking account, and took a bus to the city. I crashed on a friend's couch for a bit, then a mattress on someone's floor, then nowhere. I lost touch with that friend. The couch turned into a subway bench. The rest, you already know. So yeah, when Haley said she'd changed, I didn't buy it. I asked her for proof. What exactly do you need the $30,000 for? Can you break it down? She replied almost instantly, as if she'd anticipated the question. $18K to bring the mortgage current, $4,000 for the surgery, $3,000 for utilities and groceries. The rest is for cushion while we job hunt. I asked for documentation. She said they weren't comfortable sharing that. I asked what Kyle did before he lost his job. She dodged it. I asked what she was doing for income. She said she was working on some things and trying to get a brand partnership. I could feel my stomach twisting. Not out of guilt, out of anger. The same old entitlement, wrapped in a new costume. She still thought she could guilt me into saving her. Still assumed I'd roll over the second she dangled some half-hearted apology in front of me. I didn't respond for 2 days. She messaged again. This time, colder. Clayton, I'm serious. I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't urgent. You can help us. You just don't want to. That one hit a nerve. She was right. I could help. I had more than enough in my savings to float them. I'd worked hard, invested smart, lived modestly. I was in a position to make that kind of loan. But she was also dead wrong. It wasn't that I didn't want to help. It was that I refused to be her doormat again. And that's when I knew what I had to do. She thought she was texting the same little brother she used to bully into silence. The one who folded at every snide remark, every guilt trip. But that version of me was long gone. And if Haley wanted to see what I'd become, well, I was happy to show her. She just wouldn't like what came next. Rock Bottom doesn't feel like the movies. There's no dramatic background score, no big moment of clarity. Just a slow, gnawing ache in your chest that never quite goes away. You stop keeping track of days because they all look the same. You stop hoping someone will come looking for you, because eventually, you understand, no one's coming. For me, Rock Bottom was a cold Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after my car got towed. I remember because the McDonald's by the train station had just stopped serving breakfast, and I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I stood outside with my hands buried in my jacket pockets, trying to make the few coins I had feel like more than they were. I'd been sleeping behind a storage facility on 6th Street. There was a little alley no one bothered with, and the trash bins there didn't smell as bad as the ones in the next block. My bed was a flattened cardboard box and an old curtain I'd found in a dumpster. Glamorous, I know. Some nights, I convinced myself this was temporary, that I was in some underdog movie, and this was just the montage before the rise. But most of the time, I didn't even think of myself as a person anymore. Just another shape on the sidewalk. It took me months to crawl out of that place. Not because I was lazy or lacked ambition, but because when you've been stripped of everything, money, shelter, dignity, it's hard to believe you deserve anything better. No one gave me a roadmap. There was no sudden stroke of luck. What I had was a library card. The main city library opened at 9 a.m., and it became my sanctuary. Warm, quiet, and, most importantly, free Wi-Fi. I'd sit at the far corner, near the outlets, and scroll through job boards. I applied to everything: dishwashing, warehouse labor, janitorial work. Most didn't call back. A few did, but once they saw my ID listed no permanent address, the offers vanished. Eventually, I caught a break. A small, family-owned print shop near downtown needed someone to clean and close up in the evenings. The owner, Peter, was in his late 60s and didn't care about my background as long as I showed up on time and didn't steal toner. He paid me under the table, minimum wage, cash in hand. It wasn't much, but it was something. More importantly, he let me use the computer in the back when the shop was closed. That changed everything. I used those quiet hours to teach myself HTML and CSS, then JavaScript, then WordPress. Every tutorial I could find, every forum thread, every YouTube video. I consumed it like it was oxygen. My brain, starved for stimulation for so long, lit up with every new concept I learned. I started rebuilding something that looked like confidence, something that felt like control. I'd always loved problem solving. Even as a kid, I could sit with a puzzle for hours. Web development felt like that, like untangling a knot one strand at a time. One night, Peter walked in early and found me halfway through designing a sample website for a fake coffee shop. I panicked, thinking he'd tell me to stop using his stuff. Instead, he looked at the screen for a moment, then said, "That actually looks pretty damn good." I blinked. "You think so?" He shrugged. "Better than what I paid my nephew to make for our business site. You want to try fixing ours?" I did. Spent the weekend revamping his cluttered 2007 nightmare into something clean, modern, and responsive. When he saw the finished product, he slipped me an envelope with 2 crisp $100 bills. "Tell people you built this. I'll vouch for you," he said. I must have stared at the money for a full minute before I nodded. That moment, that envelope, wasn't just payment. It was the first time in my adult life someone looked at me and saw potential. I used that project as my portfolio. Created a simple one-page site advertising myself as a freelance web designer. WordPress sites, landing pages, Shopify tweaks. I listed it all, even the things I was still learning. Then I posted it on Craigslist, Facebook groups, Reddit. And I got nothing. For weeks, not a single inquiry. But I didn't stop. I kept learning, kept refining, kept reaching out. Every morning, I cleaned the print shop. Every night, I built fake projects for fake clients to fill out my site. Then, finally, it happened. A yoga instructor named Sheila needed a new website for her studio. Her cousin had bailed halfway through the build. She'd seen my ad in a community Facebook group. "I don't have much of a budget," she warned. "I don't need much," I said. She paid me $200. I built the entire thing in 4 days, worked through the nights, triple-checked every link, optimized it for mobile, even made her a logo. She was so impressed she referred me to her friend, a wedding planner. That job led to another, then another. I reinvested every dollar. First, a real pair of shoes, then a used Chromebook. Then, finally, a tiny room in a boarding house. No kitchen, shared bathroom, but 4 walls and a lock. For the first time in over a year, I had an address again. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing there's a ladder behind you. I wasn't out of the canyon, not yet. But now I could climb. I didn't tell anyone from my old life. No calls to mom. No updates to Haley. As far as they knew, I'd disappeared. And that suited me just fine, because I wasn't building a comeback for their approval. I was building it for me. In 6 months, I had a full roster of clients. Small businesses, nonprofits, even a couple of e-commerce stores. I taught myself SEO, conversion copywriting, A/B testing. Started charging more. Outsourced some tasks to other freelancers. A year after moving into that boarding house, I moved out. Into my own place. It was a modest 1-bedroom on the edge of the city, creaky floors, drafty windows, but it had a working oven and a view of the skyline if you craned your neck out the bathroom window. It might as well have been a palace. I sat on the floor the first night and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I remembered. I remembered the girl in the trench coat laughing at me like I was invisible. I remembered watching my laptop fly to Barcelona in Haley's designer tote bag. I remembered the silence from mom, the "let's not start something," every time I dared to speak up. And now? Now I had keys. A bank account. clients who trusted me, a name in the local freelancer community. I even did a guest Zoom lecture at a community college's web design class. The professor had found my blog. I wasn't rich. Not yet. But I was stable, independent, free. And all of it, every ounce of it, came without a shred of help from my family. That's why Haley's message hit me so hard. Because I'd done what they always said I couldn't. I survived. I thrived. And now they were the ones drowning. It would have been poetic justice to block her, walk away, and never look back. But the thing about healing is, it gives you the strength not just to survive the past, but to face it head on. And I wasn't done facing it. Haley thought she was reaching out to a soft-hearted brother too kind to turn her down. But what she didn't realize was, I was finally ready to reply, not as the broken boy she remembered, but as the man they never saw coming. I didn't respond to Haley's last message right away. After everything, after the fake warmth, the guilt tripping, the sudden urgency, it didn't sit right to give her what she was really asking for. A quick yes or no. She wasn't just asking for money. She was asking for access to my life again. For control. And I wasn't going to hand her either. Instead, I read her words again and again. You can help us. You just don't want to. That line told me everything I needed to know. Haley hadn't changed. She still saw herself as the center of the universe, still believed that everyone around her owed her something just because she wanted it. And she still thought I was the same kid who used to sit in silence at the dinner table while she told Mom I'd been weird all day and needed to get checked out. She had no idea who she was dealing with anymore. But she was about to find out. Because I wasn't going to just reject her. I was going to show her. Piece by piece. Memory by memory. She was going to feel every moment she'd ever made me feel small. Every betrayal. Every dismissive laugh. Every time she erased me from the family like I was a stain she couldn't scrub out. But to do that, I needed a plan. And I knew just where to start. The first thing I did was look up her address. She hadn't sent it directly, but she'd mentioned the neighborhood they were in, and from a few older public records I dug up, including a wedding announcement archived on some third-party newspaper site, I found the street name. After that, it wasn't hard. One quick property search, and there it was, a 4-bedroom colonial in a cookie-cutter suburb, complete with a white fence and a backyard perfect for entertaining. Bought 5 years ago for $430,000. I cross-checked the mortgage lender. Yep, still under both her and Kyle's names. She wasn't lying about being behind on payments. In fact, a foreclosure notice had already been filed with the county court 3 weeks earlier. Public record. She just hadn't thought I'd bother looking. Next, I found Kyle's LinkedIn. He hadn't posted in months, but his last job listed was Director of Sales at a now-defunct startup. Company had folded a year ago. I searched court databases for bankruptcy filings. Nothing yet. But they were circling the drain. Haley had painted a picture of a struggling family who just needed one good push to get back on their feet. What I saw was a couple living way beyond their means, still pretending they were upper middle class while the floor crumbled under them. And that made something crystal clear to me. They didn't need help. They needed consequences. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in over 4 years, Brandon. Brandon was my one real friend from high school. The kind of guy who'd give you the last slice of pizza and still ask if you wanted his drink too. We lost touch after graduation. He went to a state university on a soccer scholarship. I went nowhere, but I'd seen his name a few times on local design forums. I messaged him on LinkedIn. Hey, weird question. Got a minute to talk about a family situation? He responded in 5. We jumped on a call that night, and I laid it all out. My story, the message, the ask for $30,000, the way Haley used to treat me. I expected him to be surprised, maybe uncomfortable. Instead, he said, "Man, I always knew she was like that. She used to make you sit in the back seat, even when it was just the 3 of us in the car. Like, come on." We laughed, but there was a bitter edge to it. Then he asked what I wanted to do. And I told him, I want to make her ask the wrong person for help. I want her to walk into a trap with her eyes wide open. And I want her to realize that the little brother she stepped on all those years ago, he built the floor she's standing on. He whistled through his teeth. All right, Lex Luthor. I'm in. We got to work. First step, fake opportunity. Haley was desperate. Desperate people believe what they want to believe. So I gave her a reason to hope. I sent her a message the next morning. I've been thinking about your situation. I can't just hand you $30,000, but I might be able to offer something better. Let me call you later today. She replied within 5 minutes. Yes. Please. I'll make time. Of course she would. When we got on the phone, I kept my voice calm. Warm, even. The way you talk to someone you hadn't seen in years, but were willing to forgive. I played my part perfectly. I told her about my business, how I'd grown a freelance web design brand into a full-time consultancy. I didn't brag. I didn't gloat. I simply explained that I now had more work than I could handle, that I'd been looking for someone to help with the administrative side, calls, emails, scheduling, social media outreach. I was thinking, I said slowly, if you're really looking for work and you're serious about turning things around, maybe I can bring you on. There was a pause. Then her voice, soft and calculated. You'd hire me? I wouldn't call it hiring, I said, carefully choosing my words. But yeah, think of it like a paid internship. Short term, just to get you some money and experience. If it goes well, maybe more. She asked how much. I offered $1,500 a week, under the table. Enough to give her hope. Not enough to fix anything. She agreed immediately. Hook, line, sinker. Now came the bait. I sent her an onboarding packet. Fake, but realistic. Brandon helped me design it. It had a sleek logo, email templates, client scripts, a non-disclosure agreement. All fabricated. All just convincing enough to pass under a desperate eye. Then I gave her a task. Client outreach, I said. I'll send you the list. Just keep it professional. The list was real, but the emails were fake. We set up a dummy domain, complete with reply addresses that all routed back to me and Brandon. Haley would think she was emailing actual leads when in reality, we were monitoring everything she sent, watching how she pitched, how she cut corners, how she tried to embellish. And she didn't disappoint. Within a week, she'd already fudged a pitch, lied about her management experience, and accidentally CC'd me on a reply where she called a potential client a pain in the butt because they asked too many questions. Brandon and I documented everything. The next phase of the setup was more psychological. I told her she was doing great, that she was picking things up fast, that I was impressed. And slowly, I could hear the shift in her voice. Less gratitude, more ownership. She started offering unsolicited ideas. We should charge more. We should automate this. We should outsource that. As if she'd built this with me. It was déjà vu. Haley had done the same thing when we were kids. Take, twist, claim, discard. Only now, she thought she was sneaking in through the back door of my business. She didn't realize the house was rigged. The final step was setting the trap. I told her we'd landed a big client. Huge deal. International firm. Needed a full website rebuild plus branding overhaul. I made up the company name, Norel Ventures, and built a fake LinkedIn page for it. Even made a client portal, login with dummy briefs, mock-ups, everything. I told her this was her chance to prove she could handle high-stakes coordination. Her assignment? Schedule a call with the fake client. Manage deliverables. Prepare a report for me by Friday. She was thrilled. Finally, she said, something serious. I'll nail this. Oh, she'd nail it, all right. And when she did, that's when I'd pull the rug out from under her. Not just because of the past, but because she'd never said sorry. Not once. Not for the laptop. Not for the night in the grocery store. Not for the years of silence. She didn't regret the damage. She just regretted needing me now. And by the time I was done with her, she'd regret everything. She showed up to the fake client call in full armor. Hair straightened. Blazer crisp. Voice dripping with faux professionalism. You'd think she was walking into a C-suite meeting instead of a Zoom room built entirely on lies. I watched from behind the scenes, camera off, microphone muted, logged into the dummy client account Brandon and I had set up. Haley had no idea the voice on the other end was a filtered version of Brandon's. He was using a pitch modulator and reading from a script we'd spent hours writing. One that pushed every button we knew would trigger her ambition, her entitlement, her desperation. He introduced himself as Greg Norel, a VP at Norel Ventures, a London-based tech investment firm looking to expand its digital presence. He said they were considering several boutique agencies and wanted to see how quickly her team could deliver. Her eyes lit up. You could see the gears turning. Oh, we're absolutely positioned to handle that kind of scope, she said, emphasizing we again, as if she'd built anything more than a fake email signature. Brandon laid out the terms. A 6-month contract worth $180,000. But there was a catch. We'll need to verify your company's legal standing, he said. And we'll need proof of recent tax filings, just as a precaution. I saw her blink, just for a second. Oh, sure, she said, smoothing over the pause with a smile. I'll have my partner send all of that. She was trying to buy time. She didn't have anything to send. Because she wasn't a partner. She wasn't even an employee. She was a squatter in my inbox, riding on my name, hoping to leverage whatever scraps I handed her into a golden ticket. When the call ended, she texted me immediately. That went amazing. Greg is obsessed with us. This is the break we needed. We need to send those documents ASAP. Do you have a business license you can forward? I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I logged into the fake client account and sent her a follow-up email. One last line to dangle her over the cliff. We're eager to move forward. Please ensure all your company's officers and partners are included in the documentation. Transparency is key. She replied within the hour, CCing me, and wrote, attached are our filings. My business partner Clayton handles the finances and operations side. We've been building this agency together over the past year. The lie was complete. She'd not only claimed my business, she'd rewritten my life. That was all I needed. Friday came. Her deadline to submit the client report. Of course, she hadn't done it. Too busy celebrating a deal that didn't exist. I messaged her that morning. Hey, can we talk for a few minutes? She called within seconds. Hey, she said bubbly. This week has been insane, right? I've got the bones of the report ready, but I thought I'd wait to hear back from Greg. I mean, once this contract is in the bag. Her voice trailed off as she waited for me to gush. I didn't. Haley, I said calmly. You lied to a client. You misrepresented your role in my business. You submitted documents with your name on a company you don't own. There was a long pause. Clayton, she said slowly, voice tilting toward defensive. What are you talking about? This is our thing. You said you wanted to help. You said. I said I might give you a short-term trial to help you. Instead, you hijacked my identity, fabricated your role, and tried to lock in a six-figure deal under my company's name. That's not fair. No, I cut in, still calm. What's not fair is what you did when I was homeless and you laughed at me. What's not fair is stealing from me when we were kids. What's not fair is pretending like none of that happened, then expecting a handout the second your world started falling apart. Her tone snapped from fake sweet to furious. So this was all a setup? You were testing me. No, I said. I was reminding you who I am. And who you're not. She was quiet for a beat. Then she scoffed. Whatever. You're just bitter because you've always been a victim. You love playing the underdog. Well, congratulations, you're still pathetic. I didn't respond. I just hung up. And that's when the real consequences began. An hour later, I forwarded the email chain, every lie, every document, every line where she falsely claimed partnership, to the mortgage lender handling their foreclosure. Not out of spite, but because I knew from court records that Haley and Kyle had been attempting to negotiate a short sale to delay the repossession of their house. Lenders don't take kindly to people pretending to own businesses when applying for debt restructuring. I sent a second copy to the IRS tip line, along with a short statement. I believe this person is misrepresenting business income and partnerships in order to avoid taxes. Attached are supporting documents. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 weeks later, I got a voicemail from a blocked number. Clayton, it's Haley. I hope you're happy. The lender pulled the modification offer. They cited inconsistent financial representations. We're being evicted in 30 days. A pause. Her voice cracked. I don't know where we're going to go. Arya doesn't understand. Kyle's furious. I just don't know what to do. She didn't apologize. Not once. I deleted the message. The fallout wasn't public, but it was devastating in its silence. She vanished from social media. Mutual acquaintances whispered about a rough patch and downsizing, but I didn't correct them. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because I had something better than applause. I had peace, and in that peace, I thrived. The fake Norel Ventures project became the blueprint for a real high-ticket client I landed months later. Word spread. My business grew. I moved into a better apartment, one with a real balcony, a washer-dryer, and a little nook for morning coffee. I even got a rescue dog, a little mutt with crooked ears I named Pixel. And every now and then, I'd think about that night in the grocery store. About her laughter. About the look in her eyes when she realized she had no power over me anymore. That's when I'd smile. Because revenge doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's measured. And sometimes, it looks like building a life so far above the one that broke you. They have to look up just to see your shoes. She asked me for $30,000, but all she really got was the lesson I learned the hard way. Never laugh at someone when they're down. You never know who they'll be when they get back up.